Good morning, everybody, and a huge thank you to Stonewall for putting on this hustings. It's great to spend so much time with all of these lovely people. Now, on the 3rd of May, Londoners will have a chance to set the political direction for the next 4 years. It's incredibly important that you understand that. Somebody said to me earlier that all of us are sounding a bit the same. We're absolutely not. There are huge cultural, ideological divides between us. And it's very important that you do pick up on those if you possibly can. And it's our job to make sure that we lay it out so that it's possible for all Londoners to hear exactly what we're going to do. Now, as the Green candidate for Mayor and as an Assembly member for the past 12 years, I know how influential the Mayor can be over London, and the Mayor can set a standard in all sorts of areas. So it's going to be fascinating to watch whether or not the next person as Mayor actually fulfills all the promises that they are saying they will on these platforms. I think personally we should set aside macho politics. Is that okay? Yeah. And we have to push for a more consensual and tolerant vision of the city and ensure that public services in the city are responsive to your needs as the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community. It's incredibly important for all Londoners, but I think yours is a need that perhaps does not have as much help as it could. But in this election, Greens want to challenge two very lazy arguments in politics. And the first is that Greens are only concerned with climate change to the exclusion of the everyday concerns of voters. That is simply not true. And I would urge you, we've got a fantastic manifesto, please look it up. You will find that our social policies, our social justice policies are probably better than any other candidates on the platform. And of course, the other very lazy concept is that lesbians, gay men, bisexual and transgender people are only interested in issues that actually discriminate against them or tackle discrimination against them. And at election time, it's very easy for politicians to trot out ideas they've just dreamt up for a particular audience and forget that voters, everybody in London, has a lot of the same concerns, whether it's jobs, whether it's housing, whether it's education, health, and transport particularly. These are things every single Londoner has to care about and should care about. And we as Greens, we have a reputation for being very progressive around environmental issues, such as reducing air pollution and investing in green energies and transport. But these again are, although they're environmental, they are social as well, because air pollution is shortening all of our lives, regardless of how poor or rich we are, although of course the poor suffer more because they can't get away from it quite as easily as the rich. And I think generally it's less well known about our drive and our energy and our passion for social justice issues, and I do hope that today I can express some of those. Now, getting around London has become, in fact, increasingly expensive under my Tory opponent. There is no doubt that it is proving harder for those on low pay to actually move around the city, to even get to work. I've been talking to people who say they have to walk into the next zone so that they can afford to get to... Are you getting uncomfortable? They have to walk into the next... They have to walk into the next travel zone so that they can actually afford to get to work daily. And they have, of course, as well, to have 2 jobs sometimes so that they can afford to feed their children, pay their bills. I think that's just unacceptable. Transport has to be, public transport always has to be a cheap, reasonable service, and it should always, of course, be cheaper than using your car. And, of course, for those of us without family in London, and I include myself, you have to get around, you have to get to your support network, your friends. And so reasonable travel is incredibly important. Greens, by and large, are super scrimpers, and it's quite interesting with the budget that we've got at City Hall, because it's clear that quite often there are little ego projects that get underway, and I would say that the new bus for London is probably one of those ego projects that is costing us far too much. Now, Greens are arguing strongly against cuts to public services, that LGBT people depend on like everybody else, such as the NHS, welfare, housing benefit. And that is something that the Mayor of London can influence by lobbying and by creating a better structure for house building, and also, as Ken said earlier, shaking up the whole private rental sector, which at the moment is the fastest growing part of the housing sector, and it is becoming more and more difficult, and there are more and more rogue landlords. And so, I can't stay afterwards, by the way, but if anybody does want to talk to me at any time, then get in touch with me through my website. It might be just as well, because I do reek of garlic at the moment, which I'm sorry. My partner cooked last night and put loads of garlic in. It's his way of keeping me faithful. So, I just want to say, if any journalists say that's a joke, right? So sometimes my joke gets the headlines as if I'm serious. Now, Green London Assembly members used the first ever question time in 2000 to secure a registration scheme for same-sex couples in Ken Livingstone, paving the way for partnerships to be introduced nationally by the government. So thank you to Ken, and thank you very much to my Green colleagues for that. Thank you.